The Miami Heat earlier this offseason got an absolute gift in Norman Powell when they made the 3-team deal with the Clippers and Jazz. And first of all, how about this little work by me? I made this. And guess what, folks? You're not going to get any other hard-hitting and awesome analysis as well as clip art Canva creations like this one. This is why you joined the channel. I'm Nick Roloff. But if we're going to be honest, it was a steal. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this again after we broke down the trade a lot more earlier in the offseason is Bleacher Report came out with an article that ranked the 5 most lopsided trades this offseason, and the Norman Powell trade to Miami landed in at number 2. So I thought it was going to be a fun addition here on a Saturday to rehash this trade. And let's look at the full list of trades that Bleacher Report ranked, the 5 that made their list. You see, obviously, Norman Powell there to the Heat, but Cam Whitmore going to the Wizards for basically nothing was solid. Sexton going to the Hornets for a Yusuf Nurkic swap was a steal by Charlotte for sure. I have a little bit of a disagreement on Valanciunas. He is going to play for them, but that was up for conversation for a little bit there. And I disagree with number 1, Aston Newell and an unprotected 2026 first from New Orleans to the Atlanta Hawks. They really wanted Derek Queen. I know, I get it. But if the Pelicans aren't picking inside the top 6 this year, that's not going to be that bad of a move because I do believe Derek Queen, if he returned to Maryland and went out of the draft next year, he would have went top 3, top 5 without a question. So we're going to talk about Norman Powell and the Heat here, but are you happy that Norman is a member of the Heat? If you are, type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm certainly typing my Ys. I think he's going to be awesome for us this season. I can't wait to watch him. And Don, the 24 for Miami. It was an absolute steal. It just simply was. And we'll revisit the trade details and why it was a steal because Miami was looking to get off of Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson. And for them to be able to get a player in return like Powell was simply unthinkable, to be honest. And they didn't even have to attach a draft pick. John Collins was a player Los Angeles clearly wanted to add. And Norman Powell made the most sense because both players made about $20 million. But, the Heat getting 2 players that were likely going to be 13th and 15th in their rotation. Let's be real here. Love would have been 15th. Anderson would have been 13th. Rozier was 14th. You traded 2 of your worst 3 players on the team for a player that's going to start for you. And looking into Norman Powell even more, how about this stat on the Heat veteran guard? Powell is one of 7 players that is averaging at least 15 points per game over the last 6 years, while in that time frame, shooting 50% inside the 3-point arc and then 40% beyond the arc. So 50% on 2s, 40% on 3s, averaging 15 points per game over the course of the last 6 years. One of 7 players. Who is the other 6 that make that company? Oh, only the most elite, efficient shooters and scorers in the NBA. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Kawhi, Desmond Bane, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Michael Porter Jr. It's just absolutely insane that Norman Powell is among this list. So, in other words, when you're talking about Norman Powell as a player, he is an elite shooter. He is an elite scorer that has elite efficiency. I am not trying to sell you beachfront property in South Dakota. This is a real player that has the capabilities of being a dominant offensive force in Miami that complements Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, and the Heat got him for practically nothing. Bleacher Report on the trade, saying that the Heat owe the Phoenix Suns a gigantic thank you. There is no way the Clippers swing this deal if they don't know they're landing a freshly bought-out Bradley Beal. I do actually agree with that, by the way. Acquiring this kind of offensive punch typically costs draft picks and or prospects. That's true even if the inbound player is over 30 and even if he's on an expiring contract. All Miami gave up as a part of this deal was 2 players who didn't factor into its immediate or long-term plans. This isn't just good opportunistic business. It's a heist. Also a heist. My reading ability. But I couldn't agree more. I said it in the moment when the Heat made the trade, in the day after, in the week after, the months after, 4 months after. It's still hard to fully comprehend the Heat were able to get a player of Norman Powell's hierarchy inside the NBA for guys that they weren't going to play this season. What a move from Pat Riley. More to come, but this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. I make decisions, you make decisions every day. And if you make the right decisions on Prize Picks, you can get paid. And I'm excited to do that this football season and the basketball season when it approaches in a month and a half. You can take more or less on Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Tua, Tyreek Hill. It's so simple. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Available in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. They put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football and basketball season upcoming. I hope that you took advantage of the lowered stat projection for Dak Prescott in the season opener on Thursday, more than half a passing yard. I did. I paired it up with Joe Flacco passing yards and Demario Douglas receiving yards to try to cash in on some right picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. As we segue into the second half of this video, Norman Powell will have an absolute insane large role for the Heat this year. I would have to imagine he ends up starting for Miami. That is how we have it projected now in a lineup with Hero, Wiggins, Ware, and Bam. There is a chance that I could see Powell come off the bench for Miami as the sixth man he has done for most of his career. Was a starter for the most part last season in Los Angeles. Maybe the Heat want to start a Davion Mitchell alongside Hero instead of a Norman Powell and have more of a scoring, shooting guy off the bench. But he is one of your top 4 players on the team. So I would have to imagine you start him. Like, if the toss-up on who is the third best player, is it Wiggins or is it Powell going into the year right now? Could be a different conversation by the end of the year. Could be Nikola Jovic. But when you think about Norman Powell's role here, folks, Powell will be asked to soak up a ton of the dribble handoff opportunities as well as the off-ball shooting vacancy that was left in the sign-and trade where that sent Duncan Robinson to the Detroit Pistons. I mean, I don't think we can overstate how impactful Duncan Robinson was spacing the floor as well as initiating in the half court in this Eric Spoelstra offensive system with Bam Adebayo. I have to imagine they will use Norman Powell in some of the same capacity. Not total, because Powell is a much more capable on-ball creator and offensive initiator than Powell. But when you factor in Norman having that role, as well as being someone that the Heat will rely on taking pressure off of Tyler Hero offensively, the Heat are riding a lot on Norman Powell's shoulders this season. Like, he is an absolute major piece for this basketball team. And if Pat Riley in Miami wants this team to be a top 6 team in the East, where they avoid the play-in for the first time in 3 years and make it back to the NBA postseason that isn't a joke, like a play-in like last year where they got swept in embarrassing fashion, they are asking a lot of Norman Powell, but they're also expecting a lot of Norman Powell. He's a major piece for this basketball team, and I'm wondering if he could rise to the occasion. Round out the show here in just one more second, but if you want more content on the Miami Heat, subscribe today. Join the channel as we're putting out videos almost every single day, and when the season rolls around, we'll be live as well for Heat Game Day. Subscribe and join the family. The biggest question I have when it comes to Norman Powell is, will this be his first and last season in a Miami Heat uniform? It's obviously his first, but is it a one and done for Norman in the 305? The reason why I state this is because he has an expiring contract. It comes out to $20.4 million this season. So there is a world where Miami potentially thanks Powell for 1 year of service, does not extend him, and lets that $20.4 million come off the books so they can use it in the offseason and in free agency in July of 2026. That's a very real option for Miami. Would I anticipate it? I'm honestly 50-50. I think it depends on how Powell plays. He is on the plus side of 30. If he has a really solid year and is as good as he was last year in Los Angeles, yeah, I would have to imagine Miami likely extends him for $24 million a year, because who else are they going to use that money they would free up on? Is there going to be someone better than Powell? No, probably not. So if he plays well and does everything Miami wants him to do, then yeah, an extension's probably on the horizon, assuming he plays well. But if he's mediocre or takes a big step back in terms of efficiency and production from last year, then I would have to imagine Miami just lets that 33-year-old walk and they use that money elsewhere, maybe on younger players, or use it to help extend other players on their current roster, like a Jovic, Jaquez, or Tyler Hero. That'll do it for this episode of the Heat Report. You want more? Follow me over on Twitter. And if you have any questions on the Heat, feel free to hit me up. At Nick_Roloff is the handle. We're so close to Heat basketball, and when it is officially back, I'll have you covered even more over there. So hopefully you give me a follow.